One pro-lifer isn't content to just remain a victim of the system. He is actively fighting back. If lawfare can be used against him, well, he's going to try to work the system himself, even if all the cards are stacked against him. And so Mark Houck, the Catholic pro-life father of 7, is filing a lawsuit against Biden's DOJ over his retaliatory arrest. Joining us now to discuss the details of that case is Sean Carney, the president and CEO of 40 Days for Life. Sean, thanks for being here tonight.
It's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Great. So explain for us exactly what Mark is doing with this lawsuit.
Yeah, well, Mark was acquitted in less than an hour by a Philadelphia jury for these bogus charges that the DOJ came after him on a couple of years ago. And that is why he can sue. He did not take their deal. He did not plead guilty. He was acquitted. And now he can sue them for the violent and crazy raid of his house on his 7 children, completely unnecessary. It was retaliatory, and we represent Mark in this lawsuit. We have a number of former law enforcement attorneys, including a DOJ attorney who left the DOJ to help us with this case, and we have very talented people in Philadelphia working on this case. Mark has a great case, and it's not about abortion. It's about all Americans. Nobody should have their house raided because of their religious belief or because of their political beliefs, and the weaponization of the DOJ is out of control. And, we were getting 1 to 2 inquiries per week from the DOJ at 40 Days for Life. That ceased immediately when we filed our notice of claim.
And like you're talking about with this raid that was done against him, I mean, even aside from the fact that first the case was just local in Pennsylvania, local judge got rid of it. I think even the supposed victim, or the man who claimed to be the victim at the time, the Planned Parenthood escort, Bruce Love, even he wasn't showing up to court. Mark was the only one in court because he knew
Correct.
He was completely innocent. So it just kind of went away on its own. And then Biden's DOJ, their civil rights division, they decide to dust off the case, to all of a sudden inflate it and to make it a big issue. And like you're talking about, I mean, this raid on his home, guns drawn, guns blazing. It's terrifying. Someone could have gotten hurt. Someone could have gotten killed. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the lawsuit are some of the officers, are some of them named in this as well? Because as he says, this was just completely needless. They could have had the man turn himself in. I mean, he was cooperating the whole time. They didn't have to do any sort of raid whatsoever. Like you said, that was only the chill factors why they did that.
Absolutely. Law enforcement on all levels are named. In the lawsuit, there were a number of law enforcement agents who refused to go on the raid, and it wasn't because they had a dentist appointment. There was objection to this. It was outrageous. They told his wife that he's coming with us with or without a warrant. They never showed Mark the warrant. Eventually, they did show his wife a warrant, but they took him to downtown Philadelphia in the U.S. Marshal's office, chained him to a table for 6 hours. He couldn't call his wife. He couldn't talk to anybody. And they treated him like he was part of ISIS. So it's shameful. Obviously, if it can happen to him, it can happen to any American. And this is a lawsuit on behalf of all Americans. This transcends what somebody believes on abortion or whether they love or hate Trump. This is the fact that nobody, including those who support abortion, they don't want us locked up, and we don't want them locked up. Biden's DOJ is out of control, and we're going to find out a lot in discovery.
That we are, and I'm glad that you bring up that distinction as well, because of course, as we know, there is a war on law enforcement, and the idea behind that from the left is so that they can replace law enforcement, especially local law enforcement, with basically a federalized police force, their buddies. But like you talk about, within law enforcement departments themselves, especially at the federal level, there's a war inside as well. There's a war between those, like you said, who follow the marching orders of the left, and then there's the other side that says that's not what we put our hands, up in the air and swore in the Constitution about. That is completely antithetical to what we're supposed to be doing. So I'm glad that you highlight that discrepancy, because I think it is so important that there's the war on law enforcement just broadly, but there's a war within law enforcement as well. Are we going to carry out these unconstitutional and unethical orders, or are we going to stand against them? And I'm glad to see that some officers looked at the situation with Mark Houck and thought, nope, not going to take part, because this is no good.